If a fashion or luxury brand stated that their products are sustainable, and they're running even under sustainable operation, will you believe that? Or you'll go to their website to check out their sustainability report to see their standards, how they measure sustainability in their business. And so hence, this is very important for us to know how fashion business measures sustainability. This episode, I would introduce and guide you through the sustainability report, Sustainability Index, created by Business of Fashion. Hi everyone, welcome to Fashion Brief. So the Earth Day just passed, and the American President Joe Biden hosted the Earth Day Summit with 40 world leaders that are responsible for 80% of global emissions. While ambitious targets were set by developed countries such as US, Germany, or Japan, as one of the most polluting industries, fashion industry should definitely set goals or baseline to contribute for a sustainable future. While most fashion or luxury companies stated that they are sustainable, however, it is definitely not transparent enough in terms of supply chain. Namely, it's transparent enough for the public to judge whether they are really sustainable or not. And so at the very beginning of the report, 3 charts were demonstrated to showcase the importance of sustainability for consumers and also for companies. And so let's see, the first chart is about sustainability speak. There are plenty of references to sustainability in the annual reports of the companies are featured. As you can see from 2015 till 2019, the mention of sustainable or sustainability has been drastically increased. And also the second chart is about conscious consumers. Plenty of young generations place more emphasis on sustainability. For example, millennials or also Generation Z. And then the third chart is about sustainable investing. The total assets in sustainable funds hit a high record at the end of 2020. So basically the index is based on a series of ambitious targets that can be divided by 6 dimensions, which are transparency, emissions, water and chemicals, materials, workers' rights, and waste. And they're intended to push the boundaries of how the fashion industry operates and lay out a framework to change and required to meet environmental or social development goals by 2030. And so this chart is the overview of these 6 dimensions within these 15 companies, their performance of each dimension. And at the top, you can see the general score of each dimension, and also at the very right side, you can see the overall performance of each company. And so from the overall score of category, you can see that companies demonstrated most progress in analyzing and understanding their impact and in setting targets to address greenhouse gas emissions. And while among all the categories, waste and workers' rights were the weakest categories. And in terms of company, you can see Kering and Nike emerged as front runners, while for Richemont and Under Armour lagged their peers. So after seeing the overview, let's dive a little bit deep into the 6 categories. So the first one, and also I think it's one of the most important one, is transparency. The challenge is that the fashion industry is systematically opaque. And so the report set 2 targets for this category. The first one, traceability. By 2022, they wish that the fashion companies can achieve full supply chain traceability and disclose suppliers. And for traceability, the score performance is now 38. And the second one, disclosure, by 2022, fashion companies should be able to analyze and disclose data on environmental and social impacts. And the score for disclosure is 53. And so the overall category score is now 48. And let's take a look at the company performance. The top 3 company in this category is Nike, Kering, and Hermes. Although transparency was the strongest performing index, however, the progress towards the goal is far too slow. Based on the interview with the Global Fellow of Institute of Public and Environmental Affairs, Linda, she stated that the most important part of transparency is to have data. Because without data, you don't know how to improve or where to start with. So she also suggested fashion companies should baseline their emission goals and to have a starting point. Last but not least, the most important part of transparency is to make supply chain transparent. And so here from this chart, you can see the supply chain opacity from tier 1 to tier 4. And these are the level for us to judge until which level the company can trace the origin of products and components. And so from this report, fewer than half of the companies disclosed a full list of their direct suppliers, namely Tier 1. And none of them provided a complete catalog deeper in their manufacturing base, namely Tier 2 and above. So no companies have revealed their raw materials. The second one, emissions. The report set a target for this category by 2030 to reduce absolute greenhouse gas emissions by 45%. And the overall category score is 48, which was also the strongest performing index among 6 categories. And this is because most of the companies put emphasis on greenhouse gas emissions, and most of the companies has science-based targets for this category to align with the highest ambition for Paris Agreement. And let's see the company performance. The top 3 companies are Levi's, VF Corporation, PVH Corporation. Well, VF Corporation owns, for example, brands like Supreme, The North Face, while PVH Corporation owns a brand like Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. And while seeing the underperformed companies in this category, LVMH, Richemont, Under Armour, were the only companies that haven't set targets to reduce their Scope 3 emissions, which cover manufacturing impact. And that's what is Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. So from this chart, you can see how companies measure emissions can be divided by direct emissions and also indirect emissions. Scope 1 and Scope 2 belongs to direct emissions, and Scope 3 belongs to indirect emissions, which are mainly the most part of the supply chain from upstream to downstream. The third one, water and chemicals. We all know that fashion industry is thirsty and dirty because of the cotton farm is water and pesticide intensive. And so there are 4 targets of this within this category, namely to reduce water use and to eliminate harmful pollution and also hazardous chemicals, and last but not least, microfiber pollution, to make efforts to minimize this microfiber pollution, because normally it escapes from the water and appear in the ocean. And so the overall score in this category is 36. The best performance companies are Kering, Gap, and Nike. And so here I want to introduce a institute called ZDHC. And so the ZDHC Roadmap to Zero program is a collective initiative of fashion brands, chemical suppliers, manufacturers, and laboratories working to reduce the chemical footprints of apparel and footwear. And so basically this program is a collaboration of 30 signatory brands and 101 value chain affiliates and 19 associates. Namely, they try to make effort and active in the textile, apparel, leather, and footwear industry to minimize the chemical impact to the environment. And so this can be a guideline for fashion brands to follow in order to make an effort in terms of sustainability. So the next category, materials. This category mainly urge fashion companies to use more sustainable, eco-friendly or also recyclable materials. And the overall score in this category is only 31, so there are huge room to improve. And the 3 targets within this category are 3 material concepts, namely preferred materials. Preferred materials means that it's ecologically or socially progressive in terms of alternatives. And the second one, regenerative agriculture, which means that the farming principles or practices that has the least damage to the environment. And also, it is able to recover the soil health and to enhance the biodiversity. And the third one is recycled polyester. And so, namely, in this category, the targets are really clear that fashion companies should use more eco-friendly materials. And so from the company performance, the top 3 performance companies are Kering, H&M, and Adidas. And from an interview between Business of Fashion and Stella McCartney, she thinks that in every process, it should be sustainable, not only for the materials. For the supply chain, for the partners she cooperated with, they have a long-term trust so that they know every process of the manufacturers or the suppliers do. And also she thinks that the designers and also sources, it's very important for them to have a sustainable mindset so that they can choose the right and sustainable material for their products. Well, from the product of Stella McCartney, they use a lot of fake fur, and many people think that fake fur is not sustainable. But for her, it can be. It depends on what kind of chemicals you use on this fake fur and whether it can be biodegradable. The 5th category, workers' rights. This is definitely one of the hot discussed issues throughout the fashion industry. For example, the recent issue about cotton farmers' right in Xinjiang, China district, or also the long discussed labor condition in India. And so there are 3 targets in this category. The first one is to protect human rights, is embed in corporate strategy. And the second one is to fully align purchasing practices with comments to ethical working conditions. And the last one is to ensure workers to receive a living wage. And the overall performance in this category is only 27. And let's take a look at the company performance. The top 3 are Inditex, Nike, and Puma, while Richemont, LVMH, and Under Armour are the last 3 in this category. Although this is the issue that has been long discussed in the fashion industry, the situation doesn't necessarily get better. And also due to COVID, most of the brands were not paying on time or even cancel the order, which make them live without any wages because they are paid by pieces. And I think except giving them a fair wage and also a better working places, they should also have credits because they are the hidden hero of the product. Last but not least, waste. This category actually has a huge connection with overconsumption. And so there are 3 targets within this category. The first one, to eliminate waste to landfill and virgin and single-use plastic packaging. The second one, to establish waste-free production. And last but not least, to establish a circular business model. And let's take a look at the overall performance in this category, which is only 24. This is the worst performing index within these 6 categories. And the top performing companies including Nike, H&M, and Kering, but their scores are still really low. From this report, it stated that almost all the companies set broad goals to reduce waste or plastic use, but the information on the progress towards this action is inconsistent to the target they set. And so it's really hard for them to measure. And so based on these 6 categories, we can have more or less an overview of the status quo in the fashion industry in terms of sustainability. And so to sum up, I would like to address again to have a sustainable mindset, just as Stella McCartney mentioned, that from the very beginning of material selection till labor, workforce, until the end of point of sale, we need to rethink all the process, what we can do better in a more sustainable way. And also, brands should have a baseline for example, their emission of CO2, and so that they can start from that point and see what they can improve to set science-based goals. And so that's it for today. I hope you have a general overview of what is Sustainability Index. The reason why I make this episode, and I did already 2 episodes about sustainability, is that this is the thing I want to contribute to, and because this is important for everyone. And so I will continue making it if there is any new topics emerging. And I hope you like this episode. Please like this video and subscribe my channel Fashion Brief, and see you soon.